Hey, y'all doing? This is Preacher Man RB, and this is another movie reviews. This week, this time I'm doing Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. What happened on this movie? It starts off with Sean, and he's hitting on this girl, and her boyfriend comes up, and then they wind up racing. Well, they racing in this abandoned condominium place where they're building all these suburban houses, and they race through this, and as they're going through the race, the other guy got his friends in a truck blocking off Sean, so Sean goes the other way and goes through a house and ramps up. And Sean wins the race, but at the end of the race, both of them wreck. And Sean and the other guy and his girlfriend's up in the police station, and the police are about to lock Sean up, but his mother comes in and gets him off, and he goes to Tokyo. Well, the reason he's going to Tokyo because his father lives up in Tokyo, and he's in the Navy, and that's where he's stationed up in Tokyo. So Sean goes up there, and he goes to school, and he meets 20 and all the other guys, and then 20 shows him his car, and 20's car's souped up to look like the Incredible Hulk, and 20 takes him to the street races, and there we meet Han and DK and all them, and this is where Han is up in Tokyo. In the last movie, Fast and Furious 6, Han leaves for Tokyo, and now we see what he's doing. He's done partnered up with DK, and who DK is, he's the nephew of the leader of the Atuza up in Japan, in this Japanese mafia. So they go around collecting money for the mafia, and what we find out is Han's taking a little bit of the cut from the mafia, and that's going. We'll find more about that in just a minute. But anyway, Sean races DK, and Sean destroys Han's car. And this is Sean's first time drifting, so he just completely destroys his car and loses the race. Well, Han tells Sean to not to leave not to leave town, and then Sean goes back to school, and Han picks him up from school and tells him to come with him. And they go to this bathing place, and Han tells Sean to go in there and collect his money from a guy with a paw on his chest. So Sean goes up in there, and the guy that got a paw on his chest is a sumo wrestler. And he throws Sean out of the building, and then Sean goes back and he throws him out again. And the sumo wrestler gives Han his money. Well, then they leave, and then they meet up with DK, and they are starting to talk business, and Sean has to leave because he can't be in there. And DK tells Han that he's 6 months late, and Han tells him, "When do you start worrying about the details?" And then it cuts to Sean talking to DK's girlfriend, trying to get to know her. And then Han and Sean leave, and they go to Han's garage, and Han shows the car that Sean's going to be driving in the middle of the movie, and tells him that that's his car. And Sean says, "What?" And then Han says, "If you're going to be rolling for me, I'm not going to have you rolling in a Hyundai." And then Sean starts getting drifting lessons from Han, and Han's teaching Sean how to drift, and he's still not that good. And while he's practicing drifting, we did a cameo from the guy who created drifting up in Japan, and he's out there fishing, and they say something in Japanese and say how he ain't a good, that you call that drifting. And then Sean keeps practicing, and when he gets better, he practices that same guy, and the guy tells him good or something like good drifting or well done or something like that. Anyway, after this, DK shows up and beats up on Sean because he's been hanging around with DK's girlfriend. And DK tells Sean to stay away from her. And I think before this, it was before this because it was back when they first met up with DK. And Sean gets in a race with DK's second-hand man, and he winds up beating him. And Han gets DK's car from Sean winning this race. Well, then we go back to what I was just talking about, and Sean is beat up, and they come to check on him. He said everything will be all right. And after this, DK's girlfriend sees that Sean's been beat up and then goes confronts DK about it. It tells him that it's over and she don't want to have nothing to do with him. Well, when she does this, she goes back to Han's place and stays with Sean, and then DK and them show up after DK's uncle pays him a visit and says that Han's been stealing from DK. So DK goes to Han's shop and starts beating up on Sean again, and then Sean beats up on him and puts a gun to Han's face, and then 20 gets closes the door in the shop to distract DK and them, and DK's girlfriend, and Sean get away, and they're being chased by DK through the streets of Japan, Tokyo, and they're drifting in between cars and going out, and then there's this crosswalk, like maybe 10,000 people or less. It might be less, but anyway, there's a bunch of people on this crosswalk, so Sean has to honk the horn to get them out of the way, and he drifts, and then he winds up wrecking. Well, Han and DK go through, and then DK starts shooting at Han, and then a car comes up and side swipes Han and wrecks him, and then Han's car blows up. Well, we'll find out who this person in this car was in the next movie, and I talked about that during Fast and Furious 7 when I'm reviewing that. But anyway, after this, Sean goes to DK's uncle's place with his money and gives it to the head of the mafia, and tells him that he's sorry for how him and DK's embarrassed themselves, and he asks the head of the Hakuza to let them make this up with a race, and whoever loses has to leave town. Well, so Sean and DK's don't have this race. Well, Sean ain't got a car because the cops impounded all of Han's cars. So Sean has to get the Mustang that his dad's been working on and takes the motor out of the car that he wrecked in the beginning of the movie and puts it up in the Mustang, and they're trying to get it race worthy, and they do. Well, then the race happens, and they got to race down this hill, and the only person that's made it down this hill drifting is DK. That's why he chose this hill, this mountain. And so they're racing, and Sean and DK are racing, and they go through, and sometimes Sean's getting in front, sometimes DK's getting in front, and DK's trying to knock Sean off the mountain the whole time they're racing, and he can't knock the Mustang off the mountain because it's too heavy and too well built and heavier than the car that DK's using. So they get down to the end of the mountain, and DK goes up on the side of the hill and then comes down and tries to hit Sean, but he winds up flipping and falling down to the end of the bottom of the mountain and almost hits Sean at the bottom, and Sean drifts out and gets away from it, and Sean winds up winning the race, and DK has to leave Tokyo. Well, after this, they're back at their street races, and Twinkie comes up to Sean and tells him that there's a guy who wants to race the new Drift King, and Sean says, "Not tonight, Twinkie." And then Twinkie says he knew Han, and he said that Han was like family. So Sean goes up to this car, and this is Dom. Dom's there, and Sean tells him, "You know this ain't no 10-second race," and Dom says, "I got all the time in the world." And then it cuts to black, and we'll find out what happens continuing on the story in Fast and Furious 7. What did y'all think about this movie? Did y'all like this movie? And how y'all liking this series so far? And just give me y'all's thoughts. As always, Preacher Man R&B signing out. Guys, you, Jesus awesome. See y'all next time.